Old man doing a podcast. Real weirdos. We have English degrees. Real weirdos. We talk about movies for way too goddamn long.
Hey pig,
Blah, blah, blah.
pig, pig, pig.
Blah, blah, blah. Hey, pig, piggy, pig, pig, pig.
Yeah, I was actually
That's
kind of disappointed.
You're disappointed with my singing? Or
Yeah,
what?
sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I am pretty disappointed with it too. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, come on. I have a beautiful little voice.
I
I
mean,
just thought there was
You
going to
don't
be
like
a big
my
wolf.
intros and my cool outro?
I like
I
that
like it.
part. You make good mouth noises, boy.
Oh, that almost sounded like something like a Deliverance thing. Make you squeal like a piggy.
You make good pig noises.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh,
Well,
speaking
now
of
that
pig-
everyone has clicked off.
yeah, now that everyone's left, everyone's going like, oh wait, this is this
Like,
podcast. Fuck.
That's I don't know what this is, but it makes me feel uncomfortable things. How you guys doing?
Great. Now that I've
Yeah.
watched
Great.
this movie,
Do you think it was better than In the Name of the King? Was this a better use of time?
yeah, I mean, it was close. I mean, they're both just such great films, but this one, no, dude, this was like an acid bath. After that movie, like this was the cleansing.
An acid bath. That almost sounds like it wouldn't be fun.
I mean, it was fun because it was pig, but I just needed something to get the taste
Something
of
good.
In the Name of the King out of my mouth. It was like eating.
But In the Name of the
stale-
King is so much longer, Jeff.
I know. It's like almost like length doesn't indicate quality. It's almost like keeping a story tight and refined and telling it quickly and getting in and out and not wasting people's time is a virtue.
Getting in and out. I like
Tell that to
talk.
Homer.
Homer? Homer
Yeah, he wrote-
Simpson?
No, the
What are you
Greek
talking about?
Homer.
Oh, Odyssey joke. I get it now. Wow, that took me a while. I wasn't even sure what you were referring to. I think you're
Uwe
talking
Boll
about
of
Jeff's
Greek times.
sexy voice. The Uwe Boll of Greek times. I'm not sure he would appreciate that. Come forward, you're like, here's your spiritual equal, Homer.
Exactly.
Meet Uwe Boll.
I don't think
Show him,
Homer
like-
went around. I mean, I don't think Homer was a real person, obviously, but even if he was, I don't think he went around like threatening the other people.
You don't think Homer was a real person?
Wow. Now you're going to tell me you don't
I
think
don't believe
Jesus was
he
a real
was.
person?
I believe.
Who wrote it?
I believe it's a collection of authors that like all kind of created the Homeric hymns and everything. I believe Homer is like a facsimile of a character of an
So
author.
that's kind of like the thing that people say about Shakespeare sometimes.
A little bit, but like Shakespeare, I think there's a lot more proof that he actually existed.
There is.
Yeah, I mean, what little proof we have of things that exist in ancient Greece, but
I don't think Stephen King exists.
Oh,
I think
yeah?
that's a facsimile of other writers as well. He just writes too many. It doesn't make sense.
He is
It's like
quite
9 books a
prolific.
year.
maybe it's Uwe Boll's pen name.
You think Uwe Boll is a
Jesus.
secret genius who wrote like the Dark Tower series? That'd be very interesting. Like the whole like who is this man that we see though? I guess it would be Stephen King. Like Stephen King is a person. He just doesn't write these books. He's just like the face of this organization. Maybe he writes like one out of
What
every
a face
10.
to choose.
I know. Well, he looks like somebody who'd write that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, he also kind of looks
That
like
makes
he
sense.
eats flies.
he eats flies. He
He's got a
eats
toad-like
dogs.
appearance.
He eats toads. We're going to start this podcast off with some baseless slander
We
against the
slander
writer that
somebody.
we like.
We slander somebody every episode now. It's becoming a thing. I don't like it.
Yeah, well, I also want to do some slander on A24
Oh, that's right.
because,
I remember you
yeah,
wanted to
Alex sent us this and it boiled my blood.
Yeah, me too.
Because we all want to see The Green Knight. It looks really cool. The critical reception is fantastic, and it looks great. But A24 offered this thing where you're like, you can stream it from home because it's a pandemic, but you can only do it at this certain time, at this certain day, for $20.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, you can floss with my pubes. Like, fuck you. That's my counter offer. $20 on a certain time. And it's like, I guess it's not the most awful thing ever, but it's just annoying because it's like you could have gotten so much goodwill by just being like, okay, it's a pandemic. People can't go to the theaters or are uncomfortable. Here's this cool movie. Why don't you watch it for free? We'll stream it at this one time, this one day. People can come in and we'd be like, A24, you guys are ace. That is a super cool thing you're doing. But to charge $20 to stream a movie and I can't even choose when I watch it, it's like,
that is ridiculous.
I almost don't even want to review your movie now because that's just so lame. It's just so lame.
Yeah, it was pretty unfortunate of a choice by the production. Not production.
This doesn't make sense.
By the studio to kind of make that move.
It's greed over, I don't know, compassion. I don't know.
How much
what
is a
you'd call
movie
it.
ticket nowadays? Is it like $12, $13?
It's like 12, 10
yeah.
to $12, something like that.
That's what I thought.
I don't know. I haven't been to a movie theater since we went. Like
it's
2 years ago.
We got 2 years worth of inflation to tack on the movie tickets now, so I have no fucking clue how much they are.
I don't even think I went to the movie theater when I was in Berkeley. I was too busy doing other stuff. So I think it's been a couple of years.
I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think was the last movie I saw in theaters before everything
For
shuttered
me, it was
down.
whatever I saw with Jeff last.
Yeah, I think we
Maybe
saw
Overlord?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, maybe Overlord was the last thing we saw.
Which was fun. That was a fun one to see in the theaters.
Yeah.
I don't remember it very well.
I have no
but
memory
I remember
of it.
having fun. I remember it had like a lot of weird like Nazi zombie gore
I
stuff.
remember it taking like a hard like B movie turn. Like it was like started as kind of like a action war movie, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm into this. And then it takes this like weird B movie zombie turn, and I was like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, like
Jesse loved it.
that's my jam. I love it when things turn into wonderful schlock. So it's a difference between good schlock and bad schlock. It's very, very hard to define. But what's not either is Pig.
Yeah.
Pig. We watched Pig.
Yeah, Pig.
Jeff, what did you think of Pig?
Oh man.
Should we set Pig up? Maybe we should just set it up.
Set it
real
up
quick.
first. Yeah, set it up.
So Pig it's a pretty simple story. Nicolas Cage lives in the woods with a pig, and he hunts truffles and sells them. And his pig gets captured one night. Some people break into his house, beat him up, and take his pig. And the rest of the movie is him wandering around trying to find his pig. And it is a very, very good movie. I recommend people see it, and we're just going to go into spoilers. But did you guys like the movie?
Loved it.
Loved it.
Yeah, I really liked it.
All right. See Pig. It's worth watching. Maybe not if you're expecting a John Wick style revenge thriller, which some people inexplicably thought this was going to be. Which I guess I could see how someone would think that.
The cover art could deceive you into that. Like it's like the side profile, and it's like one eye, and he's all grizzled, and his eye looks all crazy, and following Mandy. You know, we could easily
and some other stuff. Yeah, see, that's the thing is it's Nicolas Cage, so people expect it to be schlock.
Yeah, or people I think are just expecting a certain level of like Nicolas Cage craziness.
Yeah, which you don't get. You get a real performance. It's a real movie. There's almost no violence. Like I was telling Alex this earlier, a lot of morons are gonna watch this movie and expect a certain thing, and they're gonna be bored.
Yeah,
because it's slow. It's a movie. It's about loss. It's very slow paced. You don't have Nicolas Cage shooting people. He just wanders around asking about his pig. He has like 20 lines dialogue. Most of them are, "I'm looking for a pig.
Where's my pig?
Who has my pig?
Where's my pig?"
I think it's very good, like moral lesson, and thematically it shows like the realistic limits of revenge. Everyone knows how good revenge can feel personally or even
Oh.
seeing it like vicariously on a screen, right? Like, but I don't know. It just
There's some moments where you think he's going to, where it
Exactly,
could have, like a dumber
exactly.
movie or a movie, not a dumber movie, but a movie that's not a different type of movie,
I
right?
think that's on purpose.
Would
oh, definitely.
yeah, and it's like you're like, is he gonna go murder him now? But
No.
instead, he makes him dinner, and that's like the climax of the movie.
Not
is
just
Nicolas
any
Cage
dinner.
cooking a meal.
Yes.
He cooks him the meal that has like a very emotional connection to the people that he's serving in the moment, aka the big bad dude. It's I don't know. It's so beautifully like I loved the way that he like hit them or his tool for revenge was empathy and like sadness almost. And he wasn't just spoiler alert, he serves them a dinner that they had when like right before the wife of the bad guy and the mother of his sidekick she gets in like some accident.
Yeah. So
And
okay,
she's
hold
like-
on one moment here.
Got it.
Yeah. So we're in spoiler territory. Nicolas Cage, it turns out, is a famous chef. He like was the most famous chef in Portland, which the movie mostly takes place in, and then just sort of dropped off the map after his wife died.
Like, I think that's the implication.
Yeah. And so he figures out that this guy has his pig, and it's somebody that he had served like 20 years ago. He knows this because Nicolas Cage is being driven around by this guy's son. Sorry, I just wanted to set that up because it's
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
Yeah, so at least in that like the denouement of the film, right? When like everything is going to come together and you're going to see how all of the cards fall. It just does it in a way that is, I think, in context of Hollywood and films nowadays, it's refreshing. It's not cynical. It's optimistic and it's like tender. And I think honestly, just because of the inundation of like the funny, schlocky, violent stuff that we've been so used to in the 21st century, in really all of postmodern movement, I think that it's just, I don't know how to say it, it's just so nice to see. It's so like, and it's original too. And it just, I don't know, it just makes me less angry than some of these other films that are set up in a revenge waste like are supposed to be. Don't get me wrong, I love John Wick. I think it's a cool series. I think it's fun and entertaining. But
You're talking about the 47 movies a year starring Liam Neeson, right?
exactly. You know, like I don't know. I don't want my hero sometimes to be like good at everything, right? He can shoot a gun, he can cook a 5-star Michelin meal. He can, fight with his hands and all this crazy shit. It's like, no, I'm just done with the Ubermensch attitude, Like,
Well, it has its place. It definitely has its place, but so does this. And I agree. It is refreshing. And I love that this movie got the level of attention that it did. I find that very interesting. And I don't know. I don't know if it was because people thought it was going to be a John Wick style thing with Nicolas Cage and a pig that it got the attention that it did, but it got a theatrical release. This movie was made for very, very little money. I wasn't able to find out exactly how much, but very little.
In very little time. Shot in 20 days.
oh damn.
It's the director's first film, and it's a very, very impressive first film. It looks great almost all of the time. There is some, you guys know I hate this. Maybe you saw it. The shaky cam during dialogue scenes. Like, just don't ever do that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it
I
could
saw
work.
that. I was like, oh, Jesse's going to fucking hate this. Like, right when I
Maybe
saw
it could work, but like, there's no reason.
Yep,
I haven't seen it work yet.
I thought right
it
away.
looks like crap.
Yeah, I was pretty that was pretty jarring, especially after the scene that it follows.
Yeah, it's clear that the director has like a style that he's going for. He locks the camera down a lot, and he has very interesting choices of where he places the camera. Sometimes it's very far away. It'll be through a doorway or something like that. And which is all just to say it looks very good. except when you're shaking the camera while people are talking. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. It's like, are you worried we're going to be bored or something? Cuz like your movie is Pig. Like people who are going to be bored, you're not going to wake them up by shaking the camera while Nicolas Cage is talking.
I think it's supposed to give like a kind of contextual aspect for the audience. Like you're kind of standing there. I think that's why he kind of positions the camera behind the car at eye level, kind of like you're the third person in that party standing at the back of the car watching them argue, because when he kicks the car, the camera steps back as if it was a person stepping back. So I think it's supposed to be like a perspective thing. I mean, regardless of what it is, I personally, I'm not a fan. I notice it right away. I'm like, okay, some shaky cam, cool. I personally don't like it in like action. I prefer it not to be in action. I don't mind it in this kind of slow, in this context, but in general, it's just like, please don't.
I understand the context of it more in action because it's like, ooh, it's action, you know?
Yeah, it makes more sense. But
It makes more sense, but it also does look bad.
But
I
in
don't
action,
like it.
you have the quick, when you do
I
shaky
don't like it
cam
in anything.
and
Yeah.
quick cuts, it's like motion sickness, the movie.
Yeah, that's the hallmark of a bad action director. 100%.
I loved this movie. I fell in love with it immediately. Among many of my professions in life, my main one has been and always will be a chef.
Oh yeah, Jeff makes amazing food. Every
Being-
time he makes me something, I'm happy.
Being a chef has been one of my life's greatest joys, and this movie's about food. I mean, to me, it's a love story.
It's about loss and food.
Yes, it's a love story about food. There's so many digs at the modern culinary world that resonate so well with me, because I know a lot of these types of chefs, like the chef that
one that Nick Cage
arguably
just
I think the best
destroys.
scene, in the best scene of the movie is probably that scene, but we'll get to that. But I mean, I know a lot of chefs like that who are just very obsessed with the cutting edge and the modern and the gastrochemical cooking and the weird deconstructed foods. And it's always, to me, like in small portions and in gimmicks. And I've always hated that, because for me, I love simple home flavors, umami. I like to take flavors that are simple and create something magical with them. And that's what this movie is about. Every little thing he does, everything with food in this movie is so sensual. The touch, even the first thing when all the chapters are named after dishes. And then the when he makes the mushroom tart in the beginning, and he's like folding the dough with the hands, and you like, it's all very tactile, very lots of just like diegetic sounds going on, and it's just very, I don't know, it just shows the love of the cooking when they're making that meal for the quote unquote bad guy. I don't think there's really any bad guys. There are kind of shady people in this movie.
He's pretty awful, but
Yeah,
he's not a typical movie bad guy.
Yeah, he's just kind of like a shitty businessman. Like,
yeah, he's just an asshole.
Yeah, just like a douchey guy. But I didn't feel like any way like he was like an evil man. You know, I didn't get that like villain aspect from him. And I think all of that is intentional in this movie. It's all about showing like how cooking is a love language, and it's my love language, and it's how I always show you as my friends and everyone around me that I love them. And I think that's where the love aspect comes in. I mean, food is sense memory.
Now you're hitting where I was at, apropos, like, what is this movie about? You know,
Well,
it's about loss. We've said that,
Yeah.
but it's and the element you brought in there when when you have that scene where he takes apart that chef.
He deconstructs the chef who makes deconstructed food.
Yeah, I saw that IMDb thing too.
I was like, huh.
Like, that's smart.
That's clever.
That's clever. My train of thought
Sorry.
just got destroyed.
look.
No, it's fine.
Get to be Jesse.
What was I talking about? I was talking about what this movie was about to me.
Yeah, just like love and loss. Yeah.
Yeah, love and loss, but also like there's an element of what is true for you at the core of things that goes beyond the empty glitz, right? He's like talking to the kid. He's like, "You like that car? You like that shirt?" And it turns out he didn't even want his pig back because he's good at truffles. It's like, because I love her. And it's like that feeling, and that feeling that he engenders in you, the feeling that comes from that performance, and just that ideal or that idea is so much more fulfilling than the emptiness of that restaurant, or living in the city with all of your cars and clothes and all this junk, or that guy, like the guy's dad, the villain, in his big empty house, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's like finding what's real to you and embracing that, no matter what the fuck anyone else thinks.
It's like administering, instead of revenge, really, it's really forgiveness and tenderness, right? Like, it's not like, I'm not saying he fully forgives everything. I just mean that getting the pig back is really the main goal. It's not, I'm going to destroy all the people who had a hand in this, right?
No, he uses empathy. His like you said
Exactly.
before, Alex, his weapon is empathy. Even when he deconstructs the chef, he's doing it from an empathetic position. He's like, what was your, like, no, he doesn't say what was your. He doesn't question him. He remembers that this guy used to work for him. And therefore is like, you wanted to open a pub. Like, what happened to that dream? And then just
exactly
proceeds to upend his life, but in a way that will be helpful to this person. And then he's like, where's my fucking pig?
Yeah.
But that's
exactly.
that's such a part of like what it means. This movie's not just about food. It's about restaurants. It's about the food culture and the food world, and being in so intact with that. It's like the idea of like the fact that it used to be a hotel in Pioneer Park, and they destroyed it, and then now Pioneer Park is just full of food trucks, and food trucks have this very like kind of modern, new agey, generic feel. As you can see, as he moves through Pioneer Park, in the background there's all these food trucks that he passes by, and it's kind of this new youthful industrialization of his world, which used to be the sit down, the memorable, talking about the wine. When the son was going over that experience that his parents had, like, I've had those experiences, and I've tried to give people those experiences while cooking, about like the most memorable night of, like, you talk about the food and the wine, and that's all that you can talk about. And this movie just shows that tactile nature of the restaurant industry, and that restaurant people are insane. Like, they are. Like, everyone who works in the restaurant industry, providers and procurers of ingredients, like this is a movie about a truffle pig industry, like a truffle gathering industry, and they frame it in a way where it's almost kind of like a mob.
It feels very cutthroat. Yeah,
It's like criminal underworld.
But these people are just trading fucking mushrooms. You know what
Exactly.
I mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
This movie takes it and flips those concepts on their head constantly. The whole movie, where it's like, you think it's going to be a John Wick, but Nicolas Cage is a pacifist. The definition of a pacifist. He literally gets beaten for information.
Yeah.
In this restaurant fight club, which I loved.
Which was awesome, yeah.
I also like the fact that he never cleans himself off the whole movie.
Yes!
He's just getting bloodier and bloodier as it goes on, and it's just like wearing the experience of the journey on his face. It never gets cleaned.
And the movie stops acknowledging it eventually. Like, at first, like, it's like very much like, oh wow, you're like fucked up, and now people are just like, okay, like, there's just this super bloody guy like hanging around, and
he goes and he's eating in the most, like, that in that restaurant, that super floofy restaurant.
Yep.
Just like looks like
caked.
he looks like somebody you would not want to meet on the street. He's just wearing these grubby clothes. He's got long, wild hair, bushy ass beard. His
Starts
hair
eating with
is
his
bloody.
hands.
His face is bloody. Yeah, you're like, damn, dude. Do you need help?
Yeah, he says, do you need medical attention? Like,
Yeah.
I remember the guy
When he
asked him, he's
asks.
like, no. Nicolas Cage has a great performance in this, as this kind of like straightforward, like, I don't know, he very much tapped into like his true acting chops. Instead of being like, I'm Nicolas Cage in this movie, he's like, no, I'm going to show you that like I act, and I have that like deep connection to the material. I mean, there are scenes in this where, like, I mean, when he breaks down, when he figures out the pig is dead, or when he's having the conversation with the chef, where like those are some very convincing and emotionally like impactful scenes.
Really good facial mechanic
Yeah.
like in his acting in this movie, because like you guys said, he doesn't have a lot of lines. And Nicolas Cage has never been like top tier at like delivering huge monologues or anything like that without that like Nicolas Caginess. I'm thinking more like early 2000s, mid 90s type of Nicolas Cage.
Adaptation, stuff like that.
Yeah. But now I'm really starting to see the type of actor that he is, where it's like he doesn't have to do a weird southern accent like in Con Air or something like that, and it's like that whole conversation that he has with that chef, and even the conversations that he has with the son, with Alex Wolff's character, there's like so much being said in his face, like the whole don't tell but show type thing. He's really, really good at it, and it's seemingly, disregarding his past few movies that he's done, it's like almost come out of nowhere for me. Like, I don't know if it's his age. I don't know if it's like he went and took like an acting class or picked up like how to act for dummies or something, but like he's added this whole new element to his spectrum and his range of acting, and it was like masterfully done in this movie.
Well, Cage is an interesting one. I've always liked Nicolas Cage, and I don't know, at the same time as embracing the fact that he became a meme, because it is fun. It is fun, the fact that he's a meme. It's also kind of sad, because he's a really good actor when he's in the right roles, which this is. And I hope this is a renaissance for him, because dude, he's just been like he has to be in everything because of like his financial troubles. I mean, he's a wild guy. He like bought an island. He bought a dinosaur skull. He just bought all kinds of crazy shit, and it all caught up with him. That's why he's in 37 Redbox movies a month. He's just in like anything that will give him money, which does lead to some interesting movies. Like we all love Mandy, for certain, from 2018.
Color Out of Space, I think was
Out of Space was fun. That was a fun movie. That was a fun Lovecraft thing, and you get him going batshit insane in that movie, which is always wonderful. You love a good crazy Cage performance, but this is not that. It's just mannered and slow and detailed. Did you guys laugh at any point? I chuckled a few times when he's like, "I'm looking for a pig," in that Cage voice. Yeah, and I don't think it was the performance. I think it's just like residual Nicolas Cage memery in my brain. Like it's not his fault.
No, there's definitely
the writing.
Yeah,
was
go ahead.
Good.
Go ahead, Alex.
Set that up. I was gonna say like the scene in the diner. When he just waltzes in. He's like, "I want to speak to Martha." She's like, "Martha's been dead for 10 years." And he just
kind of... It's the diner, like, right down the road.
Yeah, he just, like, pauses for a second. He's like, "Oh, do you have a phone?" She's like, "Are you going to order anything?" And he's like, "No." I don't know. I thought that was, like, actually kind of funny.
He's very, like, the flat delivery. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really great.
Exactly.
He has a few really great lines. I mean, they tried to do some forced humor with, like, the radio scene where, like, they're switching on and off the radio. Very classic kind of, like, comedy duo.
I have a thing about that, actually. I'm glad you brought that up. And because it's showing, like, Cage likes silence. Right? He barely listens to anything. He just, and whenever he is silent, you hear nature. You hear nature, and he's just immersed in that, which he is from the get-go, in his cabin. And I think this circles back around, and the way that he touches people, because he and the kid are fighting over the radio in the beginning, and the kid's listening to this, like, how to be a debonair, music, blah, 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 like some douchey thing that he's listening to. And at the end, he turns it on, he listens to it for a second, and then he turns it off. And he lays back in the seat of his sports car and just listens to nature. So I thought that was like a really nice way of showing how Nicolas Cage's character, Robin, affected people.
No, he definitely leaves like a trail of impact behind him. Like instead of the John Wickian trail of blood and bodies and guns and bullets, he leaves this like trail of empathy and like kind of like introspection behind him, where all of these people are now a little bit more, I don't know, connected to like that emotional part of themselves. Like they talk about when he confronts Alex Wolff, his character's father, Darius, I believe his name. Yeah, that's his name in the movie. The villain. He confronts him, and when they're about to part, he says something along the lines of like after he's acknowledging the fact that after the accident that put his wife in like a vegetative
were you
state,
always like this,
yes,
or just after
like
she
this?
died?
Exactly. And so that he's acknowledging that like both of them were once very different men, and that there's a piece of that man still left inside of them that they've chosen to hide away, and in one person in Cage's character actually physically hid away. And in Darius's character, he immersed himself in his work to the point where he kind of became this like boss, this villain type character,
like ruthless mob boss,
and like of the truffle industry. And it's like through speaking to him through the love language of cooking, he is now a little more in tune with himself and his life. I think I kind of got the connotation that like him and his son might repair things. I don't know. I just got this whole idea that he kind of talked in this almost like childlike softness after the meal, and it was very just a powerful scene. I was very like emotional during that moment.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I know. Like that feeling when you take the bite of that meal that means something, that like the sense memory that's attached to food is insane. Cooking is one of the very few arts that engages all of your senses at once. Every single one. Touch, smell, taste, sight, everything. It's all there. And so it's such a sense memory experience, and that impact that it had, I don't know, I was very shook by that scene. As like,
does your food talk to you as well, Jeff?
Like,
should we worry?
It's not about, like you have to like be down. Like every time that food was being cooked in this movie, I was like, yes, that's how you cook. Like there's a delicacy to cooking. Like everything is touched very tenderly.
So it's like the opposite of when we watched Phantom Thread and you were like critiquing everything she was doing. You're like, oh yeah, pour the water from up there, that'll make it taste better.
Yeah, I know. I hate it when like there's just stupid cooking bullshit going on. But yes, there's I can't abide by like tomfoolery in cooking. I can't do it. Like that's why right away when she pulled the little smoky container off the top of the dish, I said out loud, I was like, oh come on.
That was such a funny statement, Jeff. I can't abide tomfoolery in cooking.
You know, it's funny because like in restaurants, I thought they nailed the front of the house like very well. You know, because back of house is cooking. Front of house is like all about just empty, hollow shows of like pouring water up from like 20 meters up, you know?
Yeah.
Like I was a waiter. I was like a server in a lot of restaurants. I could never work my way into the more authentic and like vibrant realm of back of house. I was always put up front of house. So it was always like, there's something so hollow about it. Yeah. And
well,
it's like
she even does that. She's speaking very robotically. I was like,
so
is this
ridiculous.
Like the gimmick? I was like, is this the gimmick of this place? I think they were trying to make a statement of like how these servers aren't like people. They're just like little menu regurgitation robots.
Yeah,
exactly.
This goes into my point earlier about like the sort of differentiation between Nicolas Cage's world, the world of authenticity, and empty glitz, you know, like emptiness. And the movie has this weird apocalyptic thing going on. I kind of want to rewatch at least certain scenes where he has some monologues. Dogs. What was my point? Oh yeah, okay. So there's a curious thing going on in this movie that's almost like borderline apocalyptic, and in Nicolas Cage's monologues, where he's like, like everything is gonna die and you can't get away from it. So I don't know, like live your best life. I can't exactly remember the monologues. But
he was talking about how we are due for an earthquake, and I mean, this is all. Everything he said was very true. It was very like climate extremist, but it was very true. Like we're due for an earthquake, and when that happens, the shock wave is gonna like flatten the ocean. He says, and then like the bridges are gonna collapse, and then there's gonna be a massive tidal wave, and all of Portland will be back underwater again, because it used to be underwater thousands of years before. So he's just talking about like the cyclical aspect of nature, how it will like claim and unclaim and reclaim different areas over time, and how we as humans really we're just visiting here at all times.
The idea of the volcano, I think.
Yeah,
when
he was
they're
thinking,
talking
go to
about
Mount Hood. He's like, Mount Hood's an active volcano.
Yeah.
I love that. Because they have an earthquake, and in an earthquake, that's the first thing that's going to pop.
Yeah. Going to Jesse's point about like the dichotomy here between like the really flashy and the really earthy, I feel like that's really well represented by Alex Wolff's character. I can't think of his name right now for some reason. Amir.
They only say it like twice in the actual movie.
Got it. Amir and Robin
Yeah.
are really good representations of that, and not only is Amir a representation of that, but him and his father work as dual symbols of like where that path gets you, right? Amir seems to be like he's on the up. He's snappy. He's confident. He wears nice clothes. He has a nice car. And only as the movie progresses do we see the pitfalls of that. We see what he could turn into with his father being just like a soulless man. And there are tender moments with Amir when he goes to visit his mother and things like that, and you see like he almost is like reaching out and being like, I know that there's something more to life. I know that there's something more genuine.
You're like, oh, this is a real person and not just this like guy chasing emptiness. There's a reason he does what he does, and a sadness to his backdrop. There's loss there as well. He's lost his mother and his father in a sense.
Oh, exactly.
His mother is kept on life support, and he doesn't even want to. I mean, he goes to the door.
Yeah.
He just goes to the door and like says things to the door. He's like, why is he fucking keeping you alive? Why can't he just let you die?
Yeah.
And you're like, God damn, son.
I know.
Yeah, it's an
I love that.
It's a surprising emotional twist from a character that I don't think we were expecting, and I think that's why it's so satisfying. Is I think they, at least for me, I was kind of along the impression that Amir was supposed to be kind of the levity of the story. You know, he's something you always come back to, or he's the audience, because in every scene where Robin, is Nicolas Cage's character, is kind of demonstrating his strength or power or ability, it always cuts back to him kind of just like wide-eyed and observant. And so I was like, okay, he's taking on this very like audience-like role. Like we're sitting here like, oh shit. But they turn it on its head in the third act of the movie, and they really turn him into much more of like, they round out his character arc, which is just so smart, so indicative of a good film, good director and a good writer.
I really liked how they did that too, you know, because it wasn't just two symbols of different sides, like what Jesse was saying, the real and the fake. It was like how your exposure to the real, like driving around town with Nicolas Cage, it's gonna have an effect on you, and it's gonna wear that facade down. And Nicolas Cage's character knows that after being, you know, top line chef for so long. And he tells that to the chef that he's talking to as he's recanting his story too. And he's like, what does he say? He's like, these people don't care about you. They're not real. None of these people are
none
real.
of this is
so
real.
True,
Yeah,
though, you guys.
like
it's so true. Like cooking is something that's so real. It's so tangible. Like I said, it engages all the senses. It's so real, and it is also one of the most just delegitimized, and it's just turned into plastic. The entire world of like high level professional cooking, like being a chef at his level. I've never been at his level, but I've known many chefs at that level, and mentored under them. And
Are they happy?
no, they're all terrible, miserable souls. They're all so miserable, and they're also, I don't know, they're so disconnected sometimes from from what made cooking so important to them, and it's such a sad, and it's like that you see the death of that inside of them. It's become such this generic plastic world of the celebrity chef. I mean, one of the last indications in the fall of Rome was that they had celebrity chefs. Like it's such a silly thing to celebritize.
Mm-hmm.
And then it creates this false sense of like superiority and ego. Then you get the Gordon Ramsays and all that kind of shit.
I was about to say, like, there's a chef that I follow. I have his cookbook at home. His name's J. Kenji Lopez Alt. And he is...
What a name.
Yeah, I know. He's an interesting dude. He is all about, like he'll teach you how to make like things like homemade SpaghettiOs from like a can that taste like the ones from the can, right? Because he's like, what I'm trying to do, he's like, I'm not trying to teach you how to make the best food possible. He's like, I'm trying to teach you how you can recreate food that gives you memories of when you were a kid or when you were happy and joyous. And he actually called out Gordon Ramsay on like a social media thing or whatever, and was just like, you have created a world where people think like to be a good chef you have to be just a terribly like villainous person, right? He's like, that isn't the world of cooking that I ever want to be a part of. And
that's why I got out of it.
Yeah, and I think that like Kenji, at least in the real world, is like spot on with that. And I think that is, if you're looking at this movie from just like the cooking culinary standpoint, it is like what the movie is trying to say. I mean, cooking, like what you were saying, Jeff, there's no other leisurely activity that I can think of that is more tied to our basic survival than having fun when you cook. Like sports are like, yeah, they simulate times of war, but like it's not tied to survival, right? Like the procurement, preparation, and consumption of food has been around since literally the beginning of time. It's not some hyperbole or anything like that. It's literally one of the most base things that humans can do. And attached with all that is like nascent memory, nascent feeling, and just like, I don't know, it's just a mixture of all of the things that humans need. You eat
like,
at a table with people, you know? Like...
Yep. And they show
Sorry,
that.
go ahead.
No. I'm sorry. I'm excited to hear you say this. And it's just, it shows that in the film, though. Like the director and the cinematographers really paid attention to the food itself. Like that tart, that mushroom tart that he makes in the beginning. Like when I see food, like Jesse will tell you like before, I critique it in a movie. I'm like, okay, what are they doing here? Like how are they making like everything he did, like with the hand rolling and making the rough puff pastry. And then, like, when he was eating it with the pig, I was, like, looking at it, trying to get a good angle. I was like, oh, my God, dude, the freaking blackening on the top of that is beautiful. Like, I was, like, I was so excited about how nice that tart looked. Like, it looked like something a professional chef would make. Like, now, probably, most likely, they bought it. But... that's fine, but it had the look. They dressed it up movie style in the way that was very reminiscent of somebody who knows something about good cooking and good and then mushrooms and okay, I'm gonna let someone else talk because I want to talk about mushrooms.
My mushroom tarts are in the oven; they're ready.
I have something to say.
Yeah.
So like when they're at the dinner table eating, I had this thought in my little brain box, and I was like, because I was on the edge of my seat watching it. I was like, oh, is it gonna work? Is it gonna like bring back his memories and empathy and stuff? And it's just this quiet scene, 3 people sitting at a table eating fucking food, and I was like, this is more exciting than any action scene that I've seen in like a year. You know, maybe that's not true. But you know, like I watch a lot of hollow junk. The point is like just 3 people sitting around a table eating. If there's like a really good emotional connection there, it's all you need. And it's way better than, you know, some junk action. Yeah. Essentially.
My favorite scene in the whole movie actually has not been mentioned yet, but it's when he goes and he visits it could maybe be his daughter, maybe a relative. She owns the bakery.
I think it was somebody who worked at the restaurant before.
Yeah, I was at most I was like maybe that's his sister-in-law.
Like an old friend or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe that's.
Well, she calls him chef at the end.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got it. So that scene, the way it was shot, I love the idea of implied light sources, you know, where like you don't see where the light's coming from, but like you know where it's coming from. It was almost like a courtyard, but they're sitting in that dark room. And that chapter is about, I think it's like a salted French bread loaf is the name of that chapter.
Yep.
And like, such as, again, very simple item of food. And these two people speaking with each other. That was giving me like Paris, Texas, you know, slow, still scenes where you let the actors act and you let the feelings just like exude out into the atmosphere of the movie. I loved that scene. I thought it was so, I don't know, just delicate and tender, and like to see each relationship almost represented by a different plate of food, like the one theirs being just salted French bread loaf. I don't know. I just loved that whole scene.
Dude, this movie is like Jeff's version of Paris, Texas.
Yeah, right.
You have a guy with a mysterious past. It's very understated and slow. He doesn't talk a lot, but it's only 90 minutes. It's about food.
Yeah.
And like it has, I don't know, it has more like momentum to it than Paris, Texas.
It just goes
did.
somewhere. That's really all of the difference is like it actually has like a plot and a narrative that matters and means
And
something.
he's looking for somebody
Yeah,
too.
it's like
Yeah.
in Paris,
with
Texas,
Paris, Texas.
you're like, what the fuck does any of this matter? There's so much to talk about in a movie like this because it's so condensed in 90 minutes and there's so many great themes, but
Well, apparently it was
it's
like
supposed to be
they
2
cut
hours.
an hour
Yeah,
out.
it's supposed to be like 2
Yeah.
hours plus,
Which I hope we.
Oh,
I don't
really?
know.
I hope to get a pig director's cut.
I'd be interested to see it. I'm not sure if it needs it.
I don't think it needs it. I'd be interested to see what was cut, what was decided was
Yeah.
not needed. That's more. It's more of
Yeah,
a.
because it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't the filmmaker that decided to cut it. It was the producers
Studio,
or
yeah.
whatever. The not producers. I don't know if this
It was
movie
a
even
studio.
had producers.
Neon.
The release, whoever released
Neon. Yeah.
it was their decision. But yeah, I mean, this movie. Here's my hackneyed film critic thing. If I were writing like a review of this, I'd be like, this movie is like a perfectly cooked meal that you like, the kind that you were talking about, Jeff. It's these simple, delicious ingredients just made to perfection to create something new and interesting, and it's perfectly balanced and it's memorable.
Can I do a cooking nerd thing real quick one last time?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Mushrooms?
So mushrooms. All right. So I know a lot of people don't like them. They're one of the most
I love 'em.
Me
disliked
too.
foods on the as far as like the palate. Olives and mushrooms are the two most disliked foods, and they're
I love them both.
Me too.
It's actually my favorite type of pizza is olive and mushroom pizza. But so mushrooms are amazing. Beyond just the science of them, the fact that they've pretty much confirmed that they came to Earth on an asteroid via like a frozen spore and everything like that.
Oh yeah, because they're so unlike all different
their DNA
types of
is
life.
fucking wild. Like there's so many. The way that they live, the things that they feed on, they pretty much feed on the opposite of most growing matter. What they feed on, they can live in the most insane situations. So I love mushrooms. I'm fascinated. I've been mushroom picking. I love them psychedelic and otherwise. But mushrooms are so great because they represent a flavor called umami. And umami is the part of the palate on your tongue, which it's an indescribable. That's why we use a Japanese term for it, because the Japanese term describes more of the feeling. But it's the feeling of like hominess, like a good roux in a chowder, or like a buttered bread, you know, the umami, that flavor that takes you home, but warms your belly, is the umami flavor, the richness.
That's my shit.
Soy
right
sauce
there.
is
You're
an umami.
describing- Yes.
Miso.
Making me hungry.
Miso is an umami, all of that stuff. And so some of my favorite flavors. And so anything fermented is an umami. But so mushrooms are so unique because they're so difficult. They take so much work, especially truffles. I mean, he says that he understands how to gather them by looking at the trees. I mean, he's a pretty expert mushroom picker, I guess, at this point in the movie. So I would
He'd choose dirt.
yeah, I would
to find them.
I would assume that he does know what he's talking about, but that would be like the highest level of understanding, because you really do need truffle pigs. This is such a huge, because they are buried underneath the earth, unlike a lot of mushrooms that grow. But even regular mushroom foraging is just such an endeavor, such a laborious process, and it's only done by, at least in my experience, I've only ever met the most wonderful and loving people that do it, because it's something that you can only do if you truly love it, because it's so intense and laborious and takes so much knowledge and know-how. And it's such a kind of great representation in this movie of kind of what the idea of food is. Like he spends all this time and energy and eating the dirt and connecting with the nature to then sell this product to a very plastic world that doesn't appreciate it. The truffles are very important for our winter menu. You know, it's like that's
Yeah.
the world that he's selling it to. But a truffle mushroom is umami encapsulated. It's the most umami. It's, I mean, maybe porcini mushroom, but it's insane.
Welcome to the Mushroom Cast.
It's so insane how like flavorful it is just by itself, and to be able to, like, I don't know, it's just so beautifully captured. That's really what I'm trying to get at, is it to choose mushrooms as the medium in this movie was such a brilliant choice, and done by someone who really knows food and knows what that mushroom connection to
yeah,
food
they
is.
could have gone. They could have gone with like a wild turnip pig.
There
or like
could have been so, you could have gone through
a carrot pig.
it could have been a sheep, like a sheepdog. Like, you know, it could have been, there's so many other things that you could have done, but to tie it to mushrooms.
Yeah, but then it would. I mean, the whole thing, like, it had to be a pig,
Yeah,
right?
because of John
it's
Wayne.
just tied. It's tied to that world.
Yeah.
It's tied to the whole restaurant industry. Like, it's just.
Well,
yeah.
there's a great metaphor where he lives in nature with this pig being the representation of food, and he lives in harmony with the food, with something that we consider food, which is an incredibly smart animal, a pig. And then people, masked, unnamed people, come in and they take the pig, the food, to someone who is going to turn it into this, like, plastic, like, very, like, glitzy, fake world. So it's like almost like a metaphor for kind of our food industry and what we do to food. We kind of take it and rip it out of its natural roots and shove it into these, like, beautiful little white plates. And I thought that was very, I don't know, just a very clear metaphor for me.
Yeah, it's a film with very few flaws.
It's only 2 scenes of violence, and in both scenes our protagonist does not participate. He's a full pacifist the entire movie. And then there's no guns in the entire movie. There's the only weapon used was a baseball bat.
Well, I think he had intended to stab those motherfuckers in the beginning.
Yeah, but that,
because he has the
but I
knife,
don't
but they
consider
just
a
get to him
knife
first.
that you use, like, I don't consider a kitchen knife is a weapon in an improvised sense, but it's a tool.
Exactly.
Well, that's exactly what it is.
I know.
In like
Yeah.
a defense situation.
But
I'm not saying he's like a knife fighter or something. I'm just saying he's not full pacifist.
No,
to
I know.
defend himself there.
But he doesn't ever. But that's the thing, is he's defending himself against 2 meekly little tweakers, and
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't know that they're masked. We don't know.
I believe that
Until
that's
later.
the implication, is that those 2 tweakers they interview are the ones that took the
No,
pigs.
yeah, but I'm saying we don't know that as the scene occurs.
Oh yes, I get what you're saying. Yes, it's just like,
Yeah.
But I know. But if that was the actual case, I mean, I don't think I couldn't see those 2 skinny tweakers overpowering Nick Cage in massive gorilla form.
It almost is symbolic of how the movie's going to play out, right? It's like, oh no, these people are breaking into our protagonist's home. Yeah, there you go, grab the knife, and then bonk.
Yep,
like
and
he
then
just
he
gets
gets
hit on
knocked
the
out.
head,
Yep.
and you're like, oh, so you are not as quiet as like combat.
They're like, you're not Keanu Reeves.
Yeah,
He's not gonna go
exactly.
snapping necks and stuff like that.
Exactly.
He's just.
This isn't a Bruce
He's actually
Willis
quite
movie.
inept in the whole movie, because he can't get around. He has to rely on someone for money and cars and phones. He has no real connection to this world. He steals a
steals
bike
a bike.
in probably the single greatest way I've ever seen. It was like the funniest scene in the movie. I was dying. He just fucking walks up, he walks away, and the guy's like, "Hey, ah!" And then
Yeah, he just screams at him.
and then just that's the whole scene.
Which in Portland, I guess, could be any day.
I also like the scene where he like talks to the little kid, and it's just like Grizzly Adams covered in blood just sits down next to this child and like questions him about his instrument, and like the scene that is like pretty pointless, but it's, I don't know, it's nice. I guess he used to live there. He said,
Yeah, it was his old house.
talking about the persimmon tree. Yeah.
I'm glad
Yeah.
that they didn't have like.
I wonder if that was part of like residual plot line from something else.
Maybe.
that we would see in the extra hour.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm happy they didn't have that scene continue to where like his mom comes home and she's like, "Oh my god, and who is this?" And
I
Yeah.
thought that's what was going
There's
to
none
happen.
of
thought
that.
that's where it
I
was
was waiting
going,
for
and
it, and I was like, please
it
don't.
never goes there.
Yeah, some freaking out. Who's this man, Jimmy? Covered in blood.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I really
Like, we
appreciate
don't need that in this movie. We don't need that in this movie. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's a good one.
it's a good one. I almost feel like I don't want to talk it to death.
No, it's yeah. I mean, we pretty much hit all the notes. I mean, it's straightforward. It's a story about love, loss, and the connection through art, and that art is the medium of cooking. It's a story that's
Yeah.
been told many times in many different ways, and this is just another iteration and a brilliant one.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen it, go see it. I'm sorry that you know that the pig dies, but it's still worth watching.
Yeah, it's making waves too. Like you said, it actually had a pretty like big like presence, you know, like as it was being
Yeah.
released and everything. And I was surprised because
Yeah.
with Mandy and some of the other stuff that he's done recently, like very recently, I had no idea about these films until they were like on their streaming services and whatnot. And this one was like, no, we're gonna give it.
Well,
a
none of them
theatrical
come out in
release and
theaters,
everything.
Alex. None of these.
Yeah.
No Nick Cage movie comes out in theaters anymore.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is
not.
just crazy to me. Like,
I hope that this is a renaissance for him. I really do, because I would love to see him in films, not just these junk ass movies.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
like I'd love to
critically-
see him in like put him in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. You know, as like some sort of old guy. I don't know.
I mean, hey,
Let's do something.
Definitely
Brendan
lean-
Fraser.
Yeah, but him and Brendan
Scorsese.
Fraser with the Scorsese, or just like have him lean into like this kind of more like quiet, grizzled man role. I think this is like a good pocket for him to stay in right now. Like, I mean, still have depth. I mean, don't go into like Nature Man. Like, don't get typecast. But I think this is a good pocket for him to be in as an actor. Is this like kind of quiet, contemplative, minimal lines, like Leo in The Revenant kind of actor.
Yeah, he could go crazy too. He's good at that. It's more just like finding the right role for him and having a good director to get the performance out of him,
Well, I think he cares about the
as
art.
opposed to just some generic thing that he has to do.
Yeah, well, he cares.
He does care
He
about
cares
the
about
art.
the art, and
He
I
does.
think if you pair him with a director that really cares about the art, I think that always yields something. I mean, you could take this movie and Mandy, and just have it be the most beautiful bookends of his acting range. Like, if anyone's like, Nick Cage isn't a good actor, I'm like, here, watch these two movies and tell me this guy doesn't have range.
Yeah, or a lot of the old stuff, like Bringing Out the Dead. He did work with Scorsese.
Of course.
He was in Bringing Out the Dead.
I mean,
He's a big family. He has a lot of family connections too. You know, that probably.
well, he's a
is-
Coppola.
Yeah, it owes to his success.
Does-
his
is he?
success. Francis
He
Ford
is.
Coppola
He
is
is a
his
Coppola.
uncle.
I did not know that.
He decided to go
yeah.
with Nick Cage because he wanted to sort of do it on his
of
own.
course, yeah, that makes sense. But that's cool. I did not know that he was related to Coppola at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes
Fast
sense. I think that
Times.
makes sense that he has like that connection to like film
Yeah.
in that way. He really loves the
Part of
medium
that
of film.
big old clan.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, boys.
Well,
Pig.
boys, have we seen anything else this week before we wrap up?
I've been watching a TV show
tell me about it.
called The Wire.
Get the fuck out
That
of
is,
here.
that is, you know, just a little known
Little
HBO gem.
unknown,
Yeah.
little unknown little gem of a show there that no one's ever seen before.
It's
I don't,
like
I know I've heard of it. I don't know what it is though.
It's like a
along
crime
with
drama.
The Sopranos. It's like a lot of times you see it at the top of the lists of like greatest HBO shows, at least TV series of all time, like prime time.
It's like a big time crime drama. Like,
So are you joking or are you actually watching it?
oh, I'm watching it.
no,
and
it's
just
a
doing
fucking
a
amazing
rewatch.
show. It's
Yeah, it's really
just
good.
hilarious
Yeah.
the way he framed it. He was
Yeah.
like, I'm watching this show called The Wire. That'd be like, I'm watching this show called The Sopranos. Have you ever heard of it?
Oh shit. I just went and saw this little known painting at the Louvre, little museum in France. It's called the
You
Mona
wouldn't have heard of
Lisa
it.
or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's about
The
some,
Moaning
about
Lisa.
some smiling bitch.
I watched a film called Giant.
All right.
1956 with James Dean and Rock Hudson. Alex was privy. I was messaging him during this movie because the first half, I was like, "Have you seen Giant?" And he's like, "Yeah, I saw it a bunch of times." I guess like your grandpa would show it to you all the time.
Yeah.
Something like that?
He is big on movies and just like plopping the kids instead of like babysitting, you know?
Oh yeah,
They just
I know that life.
sit you down on the like carpet and stuff and just flip on like these old movies and everything. It was Fantasia a lot when we were like really young, and then once we got to a certain age it was like, okay, I'm gonna start showing you like serious movies like Bridge on the River Kwai. He performed in the soundtrack for Dr. Zhivago, so he like would show us that movie all the fucking time and be like, that's me playing the instrument, and we're like, we know. But
We know old
Well, yeah,
man.
Giant. I messaged Alex. I was halfway through. I was like, "Have you seen Giant?" He's like, "Yeah, bajillion times." My grandfather showed it to us, and I was like, "Okay, so is it worth finishing? Because I'm halfway through it and I loathe it."
Oh shit.
And Alex is like, "It has one payoff, the very ultimate scene."
yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, great! This is it's a movie about a nice lady surrounded by a culture of racist Texas cunts with nothing redeemable." And I was like, is the payoff Rock Hudson getting murdered, please? It is fun to see a young Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
But I reported back to Alex once I finished it, and I was like, okay, I got it. The whole point of the movie, and you distilled it perfectly. He's racist the whole movie, and he's a cunt. And at the end of it, he beats up a guy for being racist. And Alex, what's this in quotation marks? By this punch, I am not racist. And you're like, great. I sat through 3.5 hours to get to that.
Oh.
And it's like,
my God.
okay,
Sorry
I
about
guess
that.
it's fun watching James Dean. He is an interesting performance, but I kind of hated everyone else. But I understood what it was doing, right? You have to set up atavism. Like the first half sets up atavism, and then the second half is like the newer generation kind of making that disintegrate, which is a good point. Like I like that point. I just don't know if it needed to be that long.
Seriously.
I'm not sure if I recommend it or not. I'm kind of on the fence,
Yeah.
but that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
It's sprawling for sure.
I saw a film that I was thinking about doing an episode on, but I kind of decided against it because it's just, I don't think there's going to be much to say about it, but it's a cute, adorable film that I've seen a lot. Surprise, surprise, Brad Pitt in it. It's a cute film.
You're talking about the Mexican,
Yep,
right?
the Mexican, yep. Burn After Reading. It's a cute movie.
Oh.
I've always loved it. It's clever and has some fun little plot twists and pretty stacked cast, and everyone kind of, George Clooney and John Malkovich really put their weight into the roles. So
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about Burn After Reading. I think you're right, though. It is pretty light. I don't know how much, but we could fold it into something else,
yeah,
perhaps.
maybe, I don't know. Maybe it might
Maybe
It is a
like
Coen
if we have another like fluffy movie that we kind of want to talk about, a light comedy, we could fold them in together, or like a Coen Brothers thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about like just workshopping the idea of who else we would do as a director spotlight, which is tough because a lot of the directors we'd want to do, it would just be too much work.
Mhm.
It's like the Coen Brothers, it's like 20 movies.
Yeah, it'd be too much.
It's like if we planned it for a year from now, but then it's like you'd have to remember it's too big. It's too big. It's too big the way we do it, where we look at every film. which is the way I want to do it as well. You know, we could sit there for an hour and just talk about the Coen brothers.
Well, we kind of did that with the
we end up
Fincher
doing that
episode.
when we do people's films.
Yeah.
You know, we'll talk about the director of that, and so
You just gotta find
I
that
don't know.
sweet spot between a director who's like prominent and has something that is worth talking about, but also has a filmography that's compact, enough
Manageable.
to deal
Yeah,
with.
because it's like we couldn't do Scorsese.
I think Ari Aster.
There's
would be
just
cool.
too many movies.
Like we've already
Ari Aster has 2 movies.
3.
We should do a Hereditary episode.
He's Hereditary.
What's his third one?
Hereditary, Midsummer, and didn't he do? Oh no, he didn't do. Fucking what's the AI movie? Ex Machina. He didn't do that.
No.
Oh, yeah.
That's a. I think that's a much better movie than either of Ari Aster's movies.
Yes.
Could we do the Wachowski sisters?
Oh my god.
That's gonna be the episode that ends the podcast. For sure.
Yeah, we need to not do that.
Oh man.
They have one good movie.
Seriously.
They're doing a new one though. They're doing a new Matrix.
Oh Christ!
Which
What?
I will watch.
I don't give a.
Yeah, I'll watch it for sure, I guess.
I have no idea. I have no expectations. I'll say that much.
Yeah. No, thank
Damn.
you.
Talking about chasing the dragon, like I will watch every movie they make just in hope that it's a sliver like The Matrix. I loved that movie.
The Matrix is.
I'll go on
amazing.
record as saying I kind of liked Cloud Atlas. It had a very it wasn't wholly successful, but it had a lot of interesting ideas.
The book is fucking insane.
Oh, I bet it is.
It's just
But like everything else they've done, I don't know. I don't think they've made a good movie. What have they? What have they made? Speed Racer, which was just god awful as a headache.
they did V for Vendetta?
Oh, really? No.
Directed by James McTeague, but is from a
Okay.
screenplay by the Wachowskis.
Okay.
But it's based off the DC Comics thing, I guess. So
Yeah, even the sequels to The Matrix were pretty bad.
I don't know.
The second one has some interesting stuff.
If you they are pretty bad, but I remember there was this this essay that somebody wrote about the Matrix, and they kind of just took the material that was already there and linked it to what they did was they did better at writing the movie than the writers did. Essentially, was they kind of took the material and they're like, well, this is kind of what they were trying to say because of the Buddhist themes of like the lotus and reincarnation and reality and but they just didn't execute it well. But I kind of, after immersing myself in the lore and the world of the Matrix, because I'm a big lore hound, I find watching the trilogy is much more enjoyable. As
Really, even that third one.
the third
Oh my
one is,
God.
to me, the third one is just all shitty battle scenes. They're just one
Yes.
shitty fight scene.
And Jesus imagery.
Yeah, so like I just kind of skip through it, to be honest. Like,
Dude, and the end of the second one is like possibly the worst version of over explanation
Yes.
that has ever
well,
been
the Matrix
in a film.
suffers from the most, like, I think the Matrix is probably the biggest victim of like bad exposition, just in general. I think
Yeah.
beyond like just the whole, even the first movie, like there's just not great exposition. It's usually delivered very flatly. Well, I think in the
Yeah, but it works. It works. For some reason it works. The end of the second one is just like I don't know how anyone thought that was a good idea.
yeah, well, wasn't like there were like I believe Matrix was only supposed to be one movie, right? It wasn't.
Well, it
supposed
was a perfect movie. It didn't need those fucking
to,
sequels.
I believe, but wasn't it supposed to be a single? I don't believe that it was supposed to be in any way
like a huge
a
epic
huge
like that.
epic
Like
trilogy. I think it was supposed to be just like a single one-off sci-fi movie.
Yeah, because nobody knew how big that was going to be. They were unknown
Well,
directors.
that movie was lightning in a
basically.
bottle. You know, it's just like
Yeah.
everything lined up perfectly. Like it just all of like they had really great effects for the time, for the budget.
Changed the world of cinema.
Yeah, I mean that movie
Yeah.
like revolutionized. Like CGI was really took off after that, and like good CGI because oh my
Yeah.
god, the CGI in the second movie is so piss poor. It's embarrassing. The Agent Smith, the scene.
Yeah,
with
the Agent Smith scene.
with all the Smiths.
Oh,
my
that's
God, the
right.
CGI
Yeah,
was
it's so bad.
atrocious. It was just
I
ridiculous.
want to watch that scene.
Do it. It's on
I wanna watch
YouTube.
that
It's on
scene
YouTube.
again.
You can.
Oh, of course it
Yeah,
is.
It's
I'll watch
so
it after this.
disgusting how bad how bad the fucking CGI is. Like it's like a bunch of like rubber dolls flying around.
When I was watching Alien 3, some of the CGI in that from 1992 was like, oh man, it's bad.
Probably better than this. Probably better than The Matrix.
Oh, I don't think so, man. Maybe. That's anyway. Blurg. Pig. Watch Pig.
Watch Pig, everyone.
Watch a
watch
piggy.
Pig.
Alex,
Cook.
it's your choice next week. What are we watching?
We're going to be watching a movie called Falling Down. I guess, I don't know. I won't say anything about it other than that I've always been very drawn to this movie because it's very LA, Southern California style. Like the way that it's shot, the location, obviously, it takes place in Los Angeles. And
Well, that's good because we haven't seen a lot of movies lately that have LA in them.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, directors
we were
don't
up
really
in Portland.
directors don't really focus that much on that part of
Yeah, Paul Thomas Anderson never uses LA.
Exactly, right? It's just, I don't know. But this one,
fucking gave up on that so hard.
yeah.
So done.
All right, well,
I couldn't finish
talk,
that one.
Wrap it
We'll
up,
talk about it
folks.
next week. We're all tired. It's time. It's the gods are signaling. It's time to wrap this one up.
Oh.
Thanks everyone for listening. We hope you enjoyed.
Yep. Have a
Thank
good
you to
one.
my co-host. Thank you, Jeffrey Casino,
You're welcome.
and thank you, Alex Abear.
Of course.
And you're both cunts. And we'll see you all next week.
Chicka chaka chapo. Now our podcast is done, and we have to run. We know it is sad, but we had so much fun. Don't be bereft, Jesse, Alex, and Jeff. We'll be back real soon. The Real Weirdos. We talk about movies for way too goddamn long. Bo 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 bo.